This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our third session in Greater Indiana's Fuel Your Day Transportation Discussion Series. My name is Kaylee May. I'm the Events and Communications Coordinator for Greater Indiana Clean Cities. Today, we'll start with an overview of Greater Indiana Clean Cities, and then Drew Laing, Senior Advisor for Alternative Fuels, will give us his insights into natural gas vehicles. Following his introduction, we will open up for discussion. If you have any questions during his presentation, feel free to put them in the chat box and we can field them throughout. Following the presentation, we encourage everyone to utilize their webcams and engage in a more interactive discussion. When you're speaking, we ask you to unmute and then mute again when you're done so that none of the background noises interrupt that discussion. And then again, please utilize the chat box to engage in additional conversations with us and the other attendees. Greater Indiana is a clean city coalition focused on advancing communities with education and resources on alternative fuel vehicles. Our mission is to advance alternative domestic fuel transportation, including energy efficient technologies across all sectors in Indiana. We are a standalone nonprofit 501c3 organization serving the state, working with public and private sector members. As the first DOE designated Clean City Coalition serving the state, we have grown in both size and service in response to our stakeholders. And for the last 21 years, we have been assisting multiple stakeholders and partners such as cities, schools, utilities, fueling companies, government agencies, universities, and other nonprofit organizations with their alternative fuel transportation projects. Greater Indiana has around 80 members or stakeholders that work with us on collaborative opportunities, whether it's for funding opportunities, infrastructure development, or fleet deployment. And together we host educational and networking events, fostering different opportunities for partnerships with fleets and industry providers. And we have our champion members listed today. And we also have our leader and advocate stakeholders listed on our website. All of those memberships have helped fund our work to deploy alternative fuels and technologies throughout the state. And together we're fueling the future of a greater Indiana. So Clean Cities focuses on 4 major activities. The first is local and national partnerships. So Clean Cities helps convene key community and business leaders to develop and implement projects, leverage resources, and address local barriers through the program's coalitions. In addition, national partnerships leverage Clean Cities resources nationwide to engage with larger fleets and organizations. Second, information and education. Clean Cities develops data-driven tools to help consumers save money on fuel costs and help fleets understand their options for cost-effective alternatives. Next, technical and problem-solving assistance. Clean Cities helps the local leaders address permitting and safety issues, technology shortfalls, and other project implementation barriers. And last, competitively awarded financial assistance. Clean Cities use federal awards to provide funds that encourage an initial private sector match and long-term investment. This framework is bolstered by local support through the Clean Cities coalitions like ours that have their finger on the pulse of local market conditions and priorities, and then can provide information, tools, experts to address barriers and solve problems, national partnerships with industry and large national fleets, and publicity through mass media and outreach, as well as financial assistance to jumpstart markets and incentivize private investment. Today's session is the third in a 3-part series that Greater Indiana is organizing in partnership with ACT Research. ACT Research is a Greater Indiana member and is recognized as the leading publisher of commercial vehicle industry data, market analysis, and forecasting services for the North American market. We will now hear from Drew Laing.
Kaylee, thanks for having me and thanks for the introduction. as you mentioned, with ACT Research. They're just based there in Columbus, Indiana. I've followed their research for a number of years, and just in the last few years, Ken Veith has asked that I come and help contribute to their alternative fuels quarterly report, which is migrated initially from natural gas, and now we're kind of broadening that into all the other technologies that are emerging with fuel cells and batteries and such. So today I was asked to speak specifically on heavy duty and natural gas. So Kaylee, I think you've got the presentation. If you can load the PowerPoint, I'll walk you through which slides. I'll give you a little background on some of the struggles natural gas faced coming out and kind of where we are today. So currently, I'm the CEO of Ogden Polar Group. We're based out of Utah. We're in the natural gas industry and specifically into more of the heavy duty and industrial aspect of natural gas. We supply millions of gallons of natural gas to a lot of fleets out here that converted several years ago, and we continue to support them. Before natural gas, I was still in the energy industry with Flying J and then Pilot Flying J, overseeing all of their commercial vehicles and tankers that they were transporting diesel and gasoline to all the truck stops. The next slide kind of talks more about today. I've labeled it natural gas and the heavy duty hurdles. So there's a lot of attempts to get in and participate in the fuel cells of heavy duty trucks, and it's not an easy game to displace diesel. So I'll talk through that. On the next slide, you can see a picture of my car. I've driven for probably 10 years now. It's a natural gas car. In Utah, here in Utah, we were one of the first states, like California, to actually build out a network of CNG compressors and stations, which allowed me to kind of run around Utah, and also got some other perks with the state and driving in the HOV lane or free parking downtown, things like that. But what's probably most important for this discussion is the stability of price, which is something natural gas has ever since fracking, and our efficiency in pulling gas out of the ground has afforded us the luxury of a very, very low and stable price of gas. So that price right there of $1.70 per gallon has been plus or minus 2 cents for me for almost 8 years now. It just hasn't changed. Or we've watched gasoline and oil prices go up and down over that period. So next slide shows the different categories and segments of transportation. And certainly, like my car on the left, it's easy to get these technologies into passenger vehicles. And as you move up to the higher classes, specifically into the Class 8, right there in the middle, the semi-truck, that becomes the tug of war that everybody fights for. And I'm going to talk through that segment specifically. My company, we're working with, like I said, hundreds of semi-trucks out here in the West and supplying them fuel. We're actually working with some mine trucks in Mexico and around the world, in Sweden. So it's still ongoing, it's still emerging. But here in the U.S., we had an early opportunity to kind of crack that nut and get into heavy duty trucking. But I'll share with you some of the challenges we faced along the way. The next slide illustrates the 4 categories that any alternative fuel will face. And we can group all technological advancements into one of these categories: cost, range, weight, and performance. They've got to overcome these hurdles, we'll call them, and ultimately get a total cost of ownership, where, as all of you know, the trucking industry is commoditized and they fight tooth and nail for every penny. So everything's measured by pennies per mile. So there's no one size fits all. So every fleet, has a different opportunity with natural gas. Some that are over the road on non-dedicated routes makes it harder for reasons we'll talk about with range and such. And there are others, like UPS, which was on the cover of this presentation, you know, they have very dedicated hub and spoke operations, and so they were one of the first and biggest adopters of natural gas because they could map out their routes so efficiently. Next slide breaks down each of these. Just we'll go through them quickly, but the cost is more than just the cost of fuel, but that's probably one of the biggest denominators to get your payback. Obviously, there's a premium on the vehicle, so there's an upcharge for the truck. There currently is even today. To get a CNG semi truck, you're paying mostly for the tanks. The tanks are pretty expensive. So then you factor in your fuel cost, your maintenance costs, and then Kaylee can help you with incentives, subsidies, and grants, whether those are state or federal. And ultimately, what we didn't know at the time was the residual value. We were speculating on how these would sell. Yeah, we're paying $40,000 to $80,000 more per truck, but would they hold on to some of that value when we had to resell them after the 3 to 5 years when the fleet was ready to turn them over? So next slide talks about the range. This is an issue with, it was even an issue with my Honda Civic, because there was a lack of stations outside of Utah. My world of driving with that CNG car was limited to Utah. I could probably get to Vegas. I might be able to get into California, but I certainly couldn't go into Idaho. I couldn't go east or west into Nevada or Colorado, because I would run out of fuel long before I found a station. So those are real issues, and they were for trucking as well. It became a chicken and the egg. If I get the truck, where the station's going to build without the trucks. So I'll talk briefly about that in a minute. And in addition to range, some of these stations were just out of the sweet spot where fleets were having to consider out of route miles, and that hampered some adoption in the early days. So like I said, the hub and spoke and dedicated routes were the first adopters and continue to run those trucks. And a lot of those going back to UPS, because they actually built behind the fence stations, we'll call it, where they just come home and refuel it at night. Next slide. Weight. This was an early concern for some fleets. It's not all fleets, because not everybody hauls max payload, but it was always an issue that was raised. And yeah, the tank packages can add thousands of pounds to the truck, but we also, you know, lose some weight from the after treatment of diesel. So again, not all fleets are the same, so not all fleets were sensitive to this, but we did go through, and I worked on a working group with to pass some legislation that got the weight for interstate from 80,000 up to 82,000. So we got a 2,000 pound weight exemption for natural gas trucks. It was a little late in coming, but we finally got that through. I think it was 2016. Next slide is performance. And this is one where a natural gas truck has to fight against how efficient a compression engine is with diesel. And over a period of years, that's actually extended a little bit because of the efficiency of diesel. Diesel trucks have gotten a little more efficient, and natural gas just didn't quite keep up. So they had to overcome this MPG degradation, where they're getting 15 to 20% lower MPG than their counterpart with the diesel. The horsepower in the 12 liter, we can go up to 400 horse and with 1450 torque. So that's enough for this 80,000 pound class 8 segment. They do have a limited exhaust brake, and then some of the other things they struggled with was some overall uptime, and that included service facilities, right? So if you go and buy a truck from a dealership, you're expecting that dealership to help service it, and it took some time to get all their technicians trained, and their shops had to be upfitted safely through fire marshal codes and such to be safe for them to work on them, and that didn't all happen all at the same time. So next slide. This just speaks again maybe to the stability of price. It's a little infographic to show you, you know, one reason natural gas is so stable is the price at the pump is only mildly impacted by the cost of the commodity. Crude oil, we know that diesel will follow crude oil like a whipsaw when we're going up and down. And we'll show you a graph here on the next slide to kind of illustrate this. So here's a snapshot of the past, 10, 11 years of fuel prices, specifically diesel and CNG. We started tracking this kilowatt hour, just we're going to add that to this, our report as battery technology comes along. But the next slide highlights the section where this was the opportunity. This is where I left and went dedicated into natural gas, probably late 11. And this was the window. I'm going to call it the window of opportunity. I'm going to explain why we missed a little bit the opportunity to convert more fleets to natural gas. Once you convert a fleet to natural gas, or a fleet decides to go to natural gas, it's not like they can do a light switch and go on, flip it on and off and go in and out of diesel versus natural gas trucks. So here we are. There's the biggest spread, as you see, between the price of the fuels. And so the payback was relatively soon. There was a lot of momentum even during that period with legislation, with credits, and both state and federal, and that made it easier and easier for these fleets to get into the truck. One of the problems was, I think it's the next slide. Well, yeah, let's go to the next slide. This will be an infographic that kind of helps you understand it. So this is around 2013, where we're out there talking, yeah, we have $4 diesel and we have, low $2 natural gas, and all these fleets and shippers, carriers, and everybody with all the incentives were saying, yeah, we want to do it, we want to test it. What were the challenges? Well, there weren't enough fuel stations. Those were all coming online, and there were plans announced, but they'd be a year or two to get the right density of stations for some of these fleets. And then equipment was probably one of the bigger ones. There wasn't a natural gas engine other than the 9-liter that Cummins makes up until it was announced, but it didn't come until late 14, almost 15. And then I talked about the maintenance shops and some of those things. So there was this real bottleneck during that window of opportunity. The next slide will illustrate, I guess, the OEMs. So of the Class 8 manufacturers, Freightliner, Volvo, Kenworth, Peterbilt, International, none of them had a natural gas engine with their own brand. So all of those actually promote and sell their own engine. Freightliner with Detroit, and Volvo has the Volvo engine. Peterbilt and Kenworth have the MX, and International had a Max Force that didn't do so well. But on the left, you see the picture of the only natural gas engine at the time was built by Cummins down there in southern Indiana. But a 9-liter just wasn't quite big enough for the Class 8 segment to run with. So there was a limitation going into that window of opportunity I talked about. We didn't have the truck yet. Next slide. Mid 2014, you can now get a 12-liter. This is big enough for Class 8. You can get them in any manufacturer will put a Cummins 12-liter in their truck. So the market started to draw some trucks in and test them, run them, and they started to make announcements. Like you can see over there, they had announcements to make their own natural gas engine. Volvo, Kenworth, Peterbilt, and International were talking about building their own natural gas engine, which would have been tremendous to have more options and OEM supported natural gas engines. But what happened, I think there's a little, so we're gonna go back to, go to the next slide and I'll show you again where we were. So follow the timeline there. Now we're in late 2014 and we've got the option. And so we start buying trucks and putting them into fleets to test. And you can see it wasn't very long thereafter that diesel starts to fall. And we go through this period where there's not really a payback. There's not really a huge opportunity. So the fleets that did adopt in the window were probably still adding to and buying trucks. But then we went into this period of time where it just wasn't as lucrative. Diesel's down. And as you can see right there, I call it backward policies, and I'll explain. But for the last 4 years, natural gas prices lost their tax credit, and this line of natural gas is adjusted. You can see in the title there, it's adjusted for fuel efficiency and taxes and everything else. So that 20% MPG degradation we report, we factor that into our line for the price of the fuel. So it wasn't until last December, not quite a year ago, that the government finally, before they went on their Christmas break, said, okay, we'll put the tax credit back in, but we're going to go backwards 2 years and we'll carry it for the rest of 20. So backward policies don't help anybody. We can't make forward-looking decisions with fleets on backward policies where the tax credit goes backwards. It would have been better had they given us, 3 to 5 years of tax credit to go and give confidence to the customers who are looking to adopt. So I think the next slide shows today, because of that period of time, diesel and natural gas kind of converged in price. If not, natural gas was higher. It squashed all these projects, right? So Volvo, they still did their 13 liter, but they went over to Europe and did it over there, and they don't have it designed for our EPA standards here in the US. We've tried to get them to bring it back. And then Kenworth, Peterbilt both discontinued their plans on theirs, as did International. Not to mention the 15 liter Cummins had plans to do a 15 liter, which people were excited about, but they discontinued that plan as well. So next slide gives kind of a summary, kind of what happened. So if you think about that graph and the time period from the window to the crash and then no opportunities, it allowed another technology to kind of emerge, and battery technology. So you got the Tesla Semi, and you have almost every OEM announcing some form of a battery technology in the semi truck, whether it's a fuel cell or just a straight battery only. That took the spotlight from natural gas, and it also took a lot of grant money and incentives that were available, and now you see them over there with battery technology. And I'm of the opinion that it's so far out there, it seems silly that we wouldn't take the opportunity to lower our carbon footprint and do the right thing for the environment while we have trucks available now. And at the end, there's a little video. Whether we watch it here or you'll have the link. It's worth watching, because we'll talk now about why we're here today. What we see in doing our research is that the natural gas trucks being purchased, specifically in the Class 8 market, are mostly replacing old trucks that fleets that already did it. UPS continues on because they've got their private stations, as do other fleets. And there are certain fleets that adopted, and they're just replacing used trucks. There is some small growth, but it's mostly those who committed to it back when the window of opportunity was real. Next slide. I talked about, yeah. So here's the opportunity for natural gas, and I think this is where the focus is within the industry. Is, the tax credit did come back. It expires in December. I don't know. I doubt they'll do it again, but NGV America is in there every day lobbying to get it done, and they've surprised me before. So maybe they'll get some other tax credit. Cummins has their near zero engine with the 12 liter, so they've gone and improved their engine to run more and more efficiently. Talked about limited new fleet adoption, but at the bottom there that's highlighted, this is the opportunity we have to compete against. I hate to say compete, but battery technology taking the spotlight and taking all the attention, where we're years away from having any productive or production sufficient enough to make real a real dent in our carbon output with fleets is in renewable natural gas. So RNG is where it is. And I was talking to Kaylee before we went live here, and one of the best examples of this renewable natural gas is right up the street from where she is in northern Indiana, Fair Oaks Dairy. There's a fleet that converted right up near there and uses their station. So up there they have this huge dairy, and they take the methane from the manure, they convert it to natural gas, and actually their whole farm is sustained independent of the grid. And they pump it across the street, and you'll see trucks coming to fill up. Well, that creates a new opportunity, both in terms of carbon reduction, and there continues to be credits available for renewable natural gas. Specifically, the renewable fuel standard that went into effect that created these RINs and other credits are available to fleets that operate trucks that can have a pathway and show they're running on some sort of renewable natural gas. So landfills, dairies, we hear a lot of investment going into those and taking advantage of that tax incentive. But if you go to the next slide, the real reason the opportunity is there is because of this carbon intensity chart that CARB produced that shows just how efficient a renewable, especially in dairy, you can get an actual negative carbon footprint by doing that. So that's where it is. That's where the technology is. And as some of these come on, all of these renewables have found their way to California because California couples it with a LCFS. You can see at the bottom there. But now they're getting enough that some of these renewable gallons, we'll call them, are coming out of California. We get called every day asking us to buy some and put them through our fleet so we can create a RIN. The next slide, I think, is that video, Kaylee, and I think we probably have enough time to maybe watch this three and a half minute video. Clean Energy put this out, and it shows the truck, and it shows it running on a renewable fuel.
My name is Victor Jr. I've been driving trucks now for about 5 years. I'm driving the Cummins Westport 12-liter low NOx renewable natural gas engine. At first, I was skeptical if the technology was going to work, being able to pull the heavier loads around the port in the LA basin. This engine's got 400 horsepower, 1,450 foot-pounds of torque. This truck's got the potential to revolutionize trucking in LA, but what good is it if it has no power? Obviously, the real test of the engine would be hands-on day-to-day operation of the vehicle, putting it through the ropes as far as going out to the inland umpire back or as far out as to Shafter and the Grapevine. Right now, we're pulling up to the Sunshine Weight Station. I have my weigh-in ticket here. It looks like we're weighing in at 63,320. Today we're heading over the dual bridges over the port of LA and Long Beach, testing out this new Cummins Westport renewable natural gas engine. The engine feels great. It's holding a steady 35 miles an hour over the bridge, pulling a 65,000-pound load. A lot of the traffic that comes through the port of LA and Long Beach is truck traffic, so it does contribute to a lot of the pollution in the LA basin. So having a technology like this can be a game changer by cleaning up the air. So we were able to put the truck to the test today on the bridges going over the port of LA and Long Beach. The power was there, and the truck held up great. Today we're driving up the Grapevine. The grade on this stretch of the Grapevine is about 6%, so it's a good test for this LNG truck while pulling a loaded container. The engine performance feels good. The truck's got plenty of power, especially on this steeper grade. The truck's performing well. In comparison to like a regular diesel motor, I feel that the Cummins Westport LNG motor is comparable, if not better. So my overall impression of the RNG clean burning natural gas 12-liter Cummins motor is great. I really like the performance, and I think this truck has a lot of potential in the future. It's cleaner, quieter, and just as capable as a diesel engine. At first, other drivers are a little skeptical when they first know the idea of the natural gas technology, but once you get them behind the wheel and actually get them to hands-on test out the truck, they're all for it. This is a whole new ball game for the industry. They can definitely get the job done.
That's probably good. You go back to my last couple of slides. We'll go to questions, but I don't know what particular part of the market some of the listeners are in, or later this will be recorded and probably shared later. And if there are other questions that come up, Kelly, you're welcome to field those and reach out to me. But there is ACT Research does a phenomenal job of following all this stuff, tracking it, and actually put together a calculator. So if any of you are looking to kind of look and compare apples to apples on a diesel over natural gas, or natural gas to a battery technology, you can go out there and there's a calculator you can see in the top left. Pull that up and put your own inputs in. We said fleets are all different in the number of miles they run and the prices they pay for fuels. It'll help in a single on a single page let you analyze the different types of fuels that we report on. And then last, there's a quarterly report. The last slide is worth. I mean, you've got senior economists and a lot of heavy horsepower going into this report every quarter. So it comes out every 3 months, and it stays up to date with all the new technologies. And as I mentioned, it's kind of morphed over and has a lot of attention on battery technologies, just because that's where the spotlight, the money, and the investment's going. But I do think there is an opportunity with natural gas, specifically in the renewable side. So on the infrastructure side, we're watching that kind of emerge, and as it brings on some of these renewable gallons from dairies and landfills, I'm optimistic that it'll have a positive impact on new fleets taking advantage of those, not only the low carbon, but also some of the incentive money, and it'll be a legitimate economical payback. So that's where we are today, and kind of where we've been. It was sometimes a painful road to get here, but that's where we are, and I'm happy to take any other questions that I may have missed.
Thank you, Drew. We really appreciate all your insights and information that you provided. So now we're going to open up for discussion. We really encourage you to use your webcam so that it's a more intimate experience. And please remember to unmute before you ask Drew any questions, and then mute again when you're all done speaking. So with that, if anyone has any questions, feel free to launch into them.
Hi, Drew. Thank you very much. That's all information that I knew very little about. I'm a climate activist, so I'm looking forward to the future, years ahead of where we need to be on CO2 emissions. But you see natural gas engines kind of as go between when the battery technologies get there and all electric, because that's certainly where the climate people want to get to, even though we know where batteries are, and that has to. And so is that really where natural gas fits?
I would, yeah, good question, Jeff. And I would probably agree with you. Yeah, I think it is probably not the end game, but I think battery technology, if we're again staying focused on this Class 8 segment, it's going to take a lot of power. You know, we talk about the infrastructure problems we face with natural gas. It will be equally as hard to roll out some of the substations and some of the megawatts that are going to be required to recharge a truck. So I think, so my answer is this: yes, it is probably a stepping stone to battery technology, but I think we've got a long runway before we actually have the infrastructure and the trucks in a position to not, to disregard natural gas. In other words, next 5 to 10 years, I don't know why we wouldn't take advantage of, natural gas while we have it right in front of us.
Well, and one thing comes to mind is that even if they went, the technology was there for batteries, the battery charging, I mean, trucks make money by being on the road all the time, and you can fill up a tank much quicker than you can recharge the batteries. So
Right.
that's downtime. So that's a big cost factor, I would think.
Yeah. So again, as we do this research, we go back and we look at cost, range, weight, and performance with battery technology. And the cost right now is to get enough batteries on a truck that you could go 300 to 500 miles is cost prohibitive. Now, Tesla semi makes great headlines, and I don't doubt that they're going to come out with this truck. In fact, just last month they had a Tesla battery day, which is worth watching if you can go find it on YouTube. And they've made tremendous strides. So they may be faster than I thought possible to get the cost of the battery down to where you can put a megawatt of power on a truck and drive 500 miles. And then the recharging, that's a little tougher. One of the fleets we service is a power provider up in the Northwest. All their trucks are on natural gas, and I asked them that question because they fix power lines all day. What would it take to run your fleet on batteries? Said it would take so much power and the infrastructure to bring enough power and substation to do that is just happen. And most people know power, so it'll be tricky to see, but that's what we're thinking.
Yeah, well, that's eye-opening to me, and I'm not clearly all for climate. I'm a realist and understand as an engineer that developing the torque and the horsepower to make a long haul run with the loads that semis have, and even with now automated driverless trucks that they're made to go all the time, and batteries aren't there to do that.
Yeah, if you go back to that, well, I don't have to go back to the slide, but the slide where it shows the car and the medium duty and the refuse truck and the semi truck and on and on. I also, our company has a Tesla, so I have a Tesla Model 3 battery car. Blown away by the technology. Love it. Think it's absolutely fantastic. It faces the same challenge. Batteries in vehicles, cars, is a no-brainer. Medium duty, all the way up to even refuse. But that semi truck is the holy grail. That's where everybody wants to get because that's such a huge consumer of fuels. That,
right.
That's where we need to go. That's what's going to make the biggest impact for the climate is there and beyond. So yeah, I think battery technology is already up there, but now we're fighting over the semi truck again.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Drew, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the RNG and what you see, how you see it being implemented in the fleets moving forward in the next few years.
Sure. So, you know, in a macro way, we want this environment to be sustainable for our kids or grandkids, whatever else. So, Jeff, being an environmentalist, taking the transportation fuel and taking the technology of converting what's already there in manure, in this case, or dairies or landfills, those aren't going to go away, but being able to capture that and keep it from emitting into our atmosphere and then turning it into a fuel, a replacement of fuel to replace fossil fuel is tremendous. The reason there's an opportunity there is because the renewable fuel standard that I think came late, was it Obama? I can't remember who passed that, but I think it was Obama's first term. The RFS, that forces everybody that has a carbon footprint has to participate in this, call it a carbon market. So if you're a heavy carbon producer in whatever you do, you now have to buy or exchange carbon credits to allow you to emit carbon, right? If that makes sense. So one way this renewable fuel standard is successful isn't that it's taking government money and saying, hey, this is just a free handout from the government to go clean. This is an actual market that was created saying, hey, these guys over here burn or emit a lot of carbon and they need to pay for that. So what they do is they can go out there and buy carbon credits that are produced through trucks. So to help explain this, if you can show a pathway and actually prove it goes on what's called a RIN, R-I-N. That is, in essence, what we'd call on a dollar bill, they have those sequential numbers or a code. It's basically one of those, and it creates those once you show that you've captured methane in this case, and actually put it into use on an automobile or vehicle. You put it on the road. That creates a credit that I can then sell, and I've created some. So I take them and I go to this market, and this refinery down there emits a lot of carbon. So they say, hey, we need to buy some. So I sell those to this refinery, and it actually lowers my fuel cost, if that makes sense. So the industry, to answer your question more directly, that's where the opportunity is. To answer that with Jeff's question about where we are today, I think we have 5 to 10 years of opportunity to make a significant impact on carbon with what we have in front of us on the trucks. And yes, batteries will come into play in that and in their due time.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from anyone who's attending? Okay. Any other points that you'd like to make before we close out, Drew?
No, like I said, I know this is being recorded, and there are several people that are signed up to probably watch it in their own time. So I just offer, you as the mediator between us, you can field any questions that may come and reach out to me that way, or feel free to contact info directly.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Drew. That concludes our discussion for today. I want to thank everyone for attending and joining us today to learn more about heavy-duty natural gas vehicles and the future of RNG in particular. Special thank you to Drew for giving us an overview of his insights and research. Greater Indiana is going to continue sessions like this, and we're looking for more partners. So if you're interested in doing sessions like this, like we did with ACT Research, please contact me at kaylee@greaterindiana.com. I'd be happy to work with you for that. We have an upcoming event that you might be interested in. On November 17th, we're partnering with the Propane Education and Research Council, PERC, the Midwest Transit Equipment Group, and Co-Alliance for a Propane Auto Gas Answers event. So you can find more information about this event on our website, greaterindiana.com.